How's it going? My name is Gnarls, and today we are going to be reviewing Old School Runescape bosses. So we have all the bosses down here. At least I think all of them are here. Quick disclaimer, everybody. I haven't done all the bosses in Old School Runescape. I know. So I've done, going from left to right, top to bottom, I've gotten about here. So I've done, oh wait, there's a couple I need to throw over here. I've done a little more than, I've done a little less than half, I should say, okay? The only bosses I haven't really done are raid bosses. No, I haven't done Gauntlet either. I know, I need to get on it. I don't know what's wrong with me. But as you can see, a lot of these are raid bosses. Like we have all the Chambers of Zarek bosses. We have Theater of Blood bosses in here. We got the Penance Queen for some reason. Yeah, I've never done Barbarian Assault. I'd rather stick a red hot poker in my eye than do that mini game. There's Volcano, which is a skilling boss. Lizardman Shamans. I've done Shamans, not in Chambers of Zarek though, so I don't know. I'm just going to put it down here because I don't know if the mechanics are any different. So the way I'm going to review these bosses is we're going to go over the mechanics. That's kind of the big thing here. What are the mechanics for the boss? I'm not going to go super into detail because there are, even though I haven't done them all, there's still going to be quite a few. I don't want this video to be super long, so I want to kind of get through it and be as concise and succinct as possible. But and a lot of these bosses, I'm not going to, like for the Dagonoth Kings, I'm not going to go each one individually like some people would. Same with the Barrows Brothers. I'm just going to kind of rate them as a whole. I'm going to go over kind of a little bit of prep time, how long it takes to get there, difficulty, of course, and just it's how much I enjoy them. That's what this all boils down to. Not what I think everyone else in the community thinks about them, but how I feel about them. So, anyway, let's just get right into it. Number 1, Abyssal Sire. What do I think of the Sire? Okay, let's put it this way. The Sire, for me, every time I get an Abyssal Demons task, I think, oh, cool, I'm going to go do Sire. I'm going to go for that pet. I'm going to get some unsire drops. It's going to be great. But then I get there and I start trying to bang out some kills, and I get like 10, 15, maybe 20 kills in, and I realize, wow, this grind is a bit much. Like, this is more than I thought it was going to be, even though I've done it a bunch. And I always end up going back to demons just to finish the task as quickly as possible. So I don't know what that says about, I don't know if that says more about the boss or about my grinding capabilities. Probably more about me. But I mean, there are some, I'm glad that I like that they implement more Slayer bosses. I like that the Sire is a thing. I really do. I just think that it's quite a bit long. The rewards aren't super great. I mean, getting an unsire drop is 1 in 100, so the odds are pretty good. But each kill takes a bit. You got to have your shadow spells. You got to have a range switch. You got to have blood spells if you want to stay there longer. I mean, you got some stuff you got to take with you. So it's certainly not up here. It's not an S or A tier. Then it's certainly not down here. I kind of wanted to go C tier, but that's not fair. For me, it's a B tier boss. I know a lot of people think the Sire is cancer, but in reality, we can't just all have super easy mechanics, super easy bosses out there. Otherwise, the game would be just so much more flat and boring. Chaos Elemental. One of the OGs. Chaos Ellie has been around for a long time, and truth be told, I've only done Chaos Ellie a handful of times, usually on task, but I mean, it's a popular pet. I see it all the time. I know people, it's not really a boss you go to, though, unless you have a task, you want to get the combat achievements out of the way, or you want that pet. I mean, other than that, I don't see a whole lot of people saying, let's go do Chaos Ellie. It's not really like that. Or unless your clan's doing like it for a knockoff weekend or something like that. So the mechanics, it takes off your armor, which, I mean, hey, back in the day when this boss was one of the few that were in the game, that was a big deal. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of mechanics when it came to bossing. I mean, Cowfight Queen and King Black Dragon were like the other OGs, and I mean, what did they have? Not really much. I mean, so that was a kind of a big deal that there was something you had to actively watch out for. So Chaos Ellie, because it's an OG, I mean, I want to put it a little higher than I personally feel about it. But I don't think I can do that in good consciousness, just because it's in relation to the other bosses, I just don't enjoy it that much. So I'm going to go C tier for Chaos Ellie. Cool pet, though, and I'm glad that that a lot of people have that pet. Alqaedra. This is an easy one for me. Alqaedra is S tier for sure. Not even a question. Alqaedra, for me, Alqaedra, it's the culmination of 95 levels of Slayer, going through one of the slowest and most difficult skills in the game. Once you finally get that Hydra task from Konar, which getting the task in itself is harder than the actual boss. Once you get that, you're rewarded with one of the most fun, mechanic-heavy bosses that... The cool thing about Hydra to me is that your skill determines how long you're going to be there. I mean, obviously, when you run out of supplies in terms of like prayer potions and stuff like that, yes, you'll have to leave. But it's not a boss that you have to bring a whole lot of food in because, I mean, some players don't even really bring that much food at all, if any, because it's just the better you are at the boss, the longer you can stay. I love bosses like that. I love the mechanics. I love all the phases to it. I love that it gets faster as it gets lower in health. I love that you have to use the room. I love you have to use all the elements of the room. I think the boss looks gorgeous. I think the room in which you fight it in is gorgeous. I just don't like how difficult it is to get a task. I've only had 2 since I've made 95 Slayer. But, I mean, that's the cool thing about Jagex is that they don't just they don't really hold your hand for all this stuff. You kind of have to grind even to get certain tasks and fight certain bosses, which I think is a cool feature. I really do. I mean, I would prefer it if you could just get it from like Duradel or whatever, but in the end, it's probably best that you can't. So easily S tier. I mean, S plus, my favorite boss in the game by far. So I'm a little biased, but man, I mean, Hydra's it's wonderful. Serb. This is, for me, this is my number 1 pet. I want the Hell Puppy more than any other boss pet drop in the game. I've done Serb quite a bit. I think I'm on 1200 KC right now. So I love his drop table. I love the fact that unless you get a crystal, you're really just hemorrhaging money here. You have to bring so many prayer potions, so many super restores. He's an unforgiving boss. So if you make a mistake, he's only really got 2 mechanics, 2 big ones: the lost souls and the lava pools that he throws at you. But they're avoidable, and with there's a little bit of a learning curve, especially for the souls. So it's not like it's just kind of the kills aren't handed to you or anything. So anyway, I'm going to put Serb in A tier. I think it's a wonderful boss, and it's 91 Slayer, so not a lot of people do this boss because, again, you need a Hellhound task in order to do it, and I need to have a relatively high Slayer level to do it. So, but once you get it, it'll make you appreciate getting a Hellhound task that much more. Skotizo. Skotizo is weird because you can only get to Skotizo when you finish up that dark totem thing or whatever in the Catacombs of Kourend. I like that it exists. I like that that's a feature because it makes the grind in the Catacombs of Kourend that much more bearable, because you know that if you're getting these pieces to these totems, you can then go fight Skotizo, who has a pretty decent drop table. You're guaranteed at least like 100, 150k per kill, sometimes more, occasionally a little less. His pet is a fairly frequent drop, so you see a lot of people running around with a little Skotizo pet, and it's a cool enough pet. It's kind of the game's kind of saturated with them right now. And also with the Dark Claw for the Purple Slayer helm. I mean, I got one the other day, so I was pretty stoked about that. Still haven't gotten the pet, but it's not a boss you can grind out unless you get a lot of totems. Which bosses like that for me are a little tricky because you fight them so infrequently. It's hard to give a super accurate rating for it, I guess. I mean, I haven't done Skotizo in a couple weeks, I think, just because I haven't been doing Catacombs of Kourend very much. But I know in terms of mechanics, the pillars that make its defense go really high. I mean, I'm glad that it has something you have to kind of be working at and watching for, but man, is there a lot of running. And I don't know. I wish there was more going on here than just hitting pillars. And, I mean, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to put Skotizo in... I don't want to put it in the C tier, but I'm going to. It's just kind of because it doesn't have much going on other than the pillars and super high defense with those pillars, and you need Arclight. I mean, you don't need Arclight, but I mean, I don't fight Skotizo without Arclight and some charges. But it's just kind of like I got a totem, I can go fight Skotizo really quick. There's not much challenge there, let's put it that way. And it's just kind of meh. It's kind of a meh boss. I should change C to meh tier. All right, KBD, one of the OGs in the game. Personally, I love KBD. My clan, we do KBD runs all the time, and we do like who can get more KC for knockoff weekend all the time. I love the fun fact for KBD that I'm sure a lot of you already know. KBD was the first boss implemented all the way back in RuneScape Classic. Obviously, back then it looked different. I think the mechanics were a little different, and as a boss, it fires all those different kinds of dragon breath. That's really the only mechanic going on. But hey, I mean, it's an old school boss. That's what bosses were back then. Just instead of using one attack style, used multiple. And I mean, it was a much higher level than anyone had ever seen at the time. It's a great boss to grind. The drop table's kind of sketchy. Not a whole lot going on there. The pet is amazing, though. Love the Prince Black Dragon. Definitely high on my list of wanted pets. And everyone has, the Black Slayer helm nowadays, so obviously a lot of y'all are grinding it too a little bit, enough to at least get the head drop. So I'm going to put KBD up here in A tier. In terms of mechanics, yes, it doesn't really belong up there, I know, but it has a special place in my heart because it is one of the old school original bosses. It's the very first boss I ever did back when I played the game in like 2006, 2007, and I'll never forget having unregistered hypercam, making a guide for my friends to show how to do KBD at like level, 95 combat or something, full prosy going in there and just barely squeezing out the kill and being like, all right, that's how you do it, folks. Let me know if you have any other questions here. So, yeah, there's a special place in my heart for KBD. All right, Warcath. Warcath is, so I love Warcath too. I do. I think Warcath is a great boss. I think it's a bit, it's like the blue ATM. I do Warcath when I'm low on cash and I need to go make some quick money. It consistently get you good amounts of cash with a lance or a Dragon Hunter crossbow. You can do this boss super quick. The mechanics they're well done. They're punishing. Even for me, Warcath is a boss that's easy to learn, kind of easy to learn. Very difficult to master. I always find myself making mistakes at Warcath, at least like one or two. Getting hit by an acid blob, or maybe getting blown up by that spawn one time. I mean, that doesn't happen for me that much often anymore. But in terms of also prep time, it's really fast. You just get your stuff, get your Crumble Undead spell, go there with your gear, and you only have to go to the Fremenic area. If you have an enchanted lyre, you can get there like that, or just switch your house to Relica. I mean, I think it's a wonderful boss. I think it's a great reward for Dragon Slayer 2, which is one of the hardest quests in the game. And I'm glad that I'm glad that it exists. I love grinding. I love farming Warcath. A little disappointed that as of right now, which is August 2023, the superior bones have gone down in price so much. I mean, I think they're like 7K now. They used to be 12K. I mean, that's crazy to me. So definitely A tier, right up there next to KBD. We have the old school dragon and like the new school dragon that Jagex implemented. All right, next one. I said KBD again. Next boss, Jad. Okay, Jad for a time was the big bad of RuneScape, right? Fight Caves was the Inferno. Long time ago, back in 2006, 2007, or whenever the hell it came out. Fight Caves was it. Only a handful of people had those fire capes. Everyone wanted one. I remember trying Fight Caves when I was a kid, not being able to get through it, not being able to get past I don't even remember, I think I'd get to round 50, and I was super stoked on that, but then the waves just got too much for me. I remember being on RuneHQ, looking at that guide, just religiously studying that guide, trying to figure out the best way with the gear that I had at the time to sneak a kill through, and then never actually making it to Jad, but thinking at the time, oh my god, if I make it to Jad, there's no way I'm going to be able to beat him. There's just no way. I can't switch that fast, and it's crazy to think that for a time, this was the hardest mechanic in the game, was prayer switching between two attacks. And granted, even nowadays, I've done fight caves like 8 times. And every time I've gotten to Jad, I'm not going to lie, there's a little bit of adrenaline. There's a little bit of excitement and anxiety in there. Like, oh, maybe I'm going to get one-shotted by him. Am I going to make a mistake? What am I going to do when the healers come? Am I going to fuck this up somehow? And I don't know. It's always fun to get to Jad and do that final fight. Obviously, it's much easier with max range and good gear than it is at, like, say, 75 range with a rune crossbow or something. But, you know, it's a rite of passage in the game. You got to do Jad. I know a lot of people who play the game who still have yet to get a fire cape because the psychological component is just too much for them. Because once they get to Jad, they just think they can't get over the fact, they can't get out of their own head that they've spent all this time grinding these waves, and now they're here, and just to get one-shotted or two-shotted by Jad or killed by the healers or something, or get too close and get meleeed, it's a trip. And I love that Jad is in the Inferno as triple Jads. It goes to show that, like, the player base since when we were kids has, like, tripled in skill. I think that's a good way to put it. So Jad is easily an S tier for me. Also because when I got my first fire cape, I remember I was at work at the time. I was working this office job, and I remember I'd saved the wave prior. So when I was going to log in, I was going to fight Jad, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went into the bathroom, and I went and I sat in one of the stalls, got my phone out, and I did the boss. I did Jad right there. It took me like 15 minutes or something, and I was so stoked when I got it. I was in the bathroom in the stall just like, yes, I did it. Finally, I was all happy. So I apologize to Professional Benefit Services. If anyone from there is watching this, I apologize for stealing company time, but I got the fire cape, so it's pretty cool. Zulrah, the money snake. Okay, let's put it this way. Zulrah is hard. I've learned that once a lot of people do a boss, they kind of downplay the difficulty. Once they get good at a boss, once they've done it, they like to say, oh, that boss is easy, you know, it's no big deal. Okay, and that's true. You start doing a boss, you get the repetition going, you become more comfortable with it and more confident in your ability. No one's disputing that. But Zulrah is a hard boss. And just because I'm able to do Zulrah consistently now, let's put it this way, I died 100 times learning how to do Zulrah. Not 100 attempts, I died 100 freaking times. Granted, I was on mobile at the time, and I remember I had all these sheets of paper, and I had written all the rotations down on them, and I was trying to say, so I was looking at the paper, and then look at my phone, look at the paper, trying to do all these things at once, and make my switches, and I mean, it was brutal, man. And when I got my first Zulrah KC, like, not just one that I squeaked out barely with like one hit point left, when I got my actual first KC where I comfortably did it in a good amount of time, I was almost as happy when I beat Jad, to be honest with you. And now I play on mobile. Now I play on PC. So I have, you know, Rune Light and the Zulrah helper, which, you know, makes it so much easier. But it's still a hard boss. And I know a lot of people in my clan who can't do Zulrah, who've tried a bunch, and they just say, yeah, it's just not for me. So I think Zulrah is a great introduction to end-game content when it comes to gear switching, prayer switching, anticipating attacks, dealing with pressure. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful high-tier boss. Definitely harder than Warcath, but about the same in terms of profitability. Maybe a little bit more. So it's going in A tier for sure. Corp. Haven't done Corp in a minute, but Corp is the boss to mass, right? That's what everyone in your clan gets together for a mass every once in a while, goes to Corp, brings the cannons, brings your spears, starts smacking Corp around, someone trying to get one of those sigils. And I'll say this about Corp. I like that Corp exists. I like that the sigils it drops are still about as valuable as they were back in the day. I think that the sigils are a great reward for Corp, and I've never done Corp with a small group, so I don't really have much room to talk about it, because doing a mass, if you've done a mass before, you know that the risk is minimal. You kind of just go in there and you're pretty much just AFK and just chatting the whole time, but you still have to kind of watch your health a little bit and make sure you're potting correctly and watch your prayers and stuff. But it's a massing boss, and it's not. Corp is great. I like that Corp exists. I'm not going to put it up here or anything like that, and I'm certainly not going to put it down here. So we're going to go B tier. B tier for Corp. Barrows. I love Barrows. Barrows is one of the OG bosses too. I remember being younger when Barrows was the best gear in the game, and it cost a frickin' fortune to own any of the sets. And if you had like full Guthans or full Therox or full Verax, like full Guthans or Verax, really, you were a frickin' god, man. And I remember Carol's used to be like worthless. I mean, not worthless, but it was like the least valuable of the Barrows armor, because the meta was so weird back then. There wasn't really a meta game back in the day. Everyone just kind of did what they wanted. I mean, so yeah. In terms of mechanics, there's not a whole lot going on here. I mean, there's the prayer drain. Varric can hit through your prayer. Darox gets dangerous when he gets lower in HP, obviously. But the real difficulty is trying to get the combat achievements and avoid getting hit by these guys. I'm glad that that's a thing, because it adds a whole new layer of challenge to the to fighting them. And I just love going up there, getting all the kills, getting 100% reward possible chance or whatever, going to the big chest and just kind of like a slot machine, man, just seeing what do you get, and getting a piece of armor, especially a good piece like a Carol's leather top. Oof, it's a great feeling. It will always be a great feeling. So I think Barrows deserves to be in B tier. B for Barrows, right? All right. Sorakness? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I only done this boss a few times. I didn't even know it existed for a long time. A buddy of mine in my clan asked me if I wanted to do it, and I had to look up what it was. Like, who's Sorakness? What the hell are you talking about? Went there, though, and I was pleased. I was actually pleased with the fight. I was impressed that, if you don't pay attention, you're going to get killed. And that, to me, is one of the markers of a good boss. So I was very stoked about that. The drop table's kind of garbage. I mean, who's really going there for a cudgel, man? I mean, I don't even know how much they cost nowadays, but I know they're not very expensive. And if Sorakness wants any sort of sustainability, then they're going to need to revise that drop table, but I doubt they will. And honestly, it's not the end of the world if they don't. It's just kind of meh. So Sorakness, good mechanics, not a great drop table. If there was a rank between B and C, that's where I'd put it, but there isn't, and I don't want to put it in B because I don't think it's that good. So we're going to have to go with C tier. Sorry. Plus it's a spider, and I fucking hate spiders. Cowfight Queen. Okay, I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. Cowfight Queen is D tier, and I'll tell you why. Cowfight Queen doesn't get any OG points for me. I know it's one of the original bosses in the game. I do. I appreciate that. I know back in the day that the dragon chain body was like ultra coveted. Everyone wanted it, worth millions of GP. But now, man, the thing with the Cowfight Queen is the whole mechanic with the Cowfight Queen is that it prays and it has two forms, right? But even at like max combat with decent gear, like full Bandos and everything, you're really only going to get one kill per trip. So grinding out this bot, I'm talking about by yourself as a solo team. I've never gone with a group to Cowfight Queen, so, fuck me, right? But at the same time, as a solo boss, I think it's horrible because she hits so accurately, so frequently, that there's just not a whole lot you can do except sit there and take it. And I don't like that. I don't like when there's no strategy involved, when you just kind of have to just stand there and trade blows going back and forth and just make sure you don't die by eating your food. That's really the whole thing, is how well can you eat your food. So not super stoked on this boss. It takes up a lot of room to even get there, unless you've done like your diaries for the desert. I mean, you have to bring 2 pieces of rope for first of all. I mean, the fastest way to get there is like a fairy ring outside. It's just, I don't know, man. I can't stand this boss. The only reason I would grind it is for the head. And I guess I need to get much better gear before I even consider doing that, because my whole goal would be to get at least 2 kills per trip instead of just 1. But, I mean, I don't know. So, D tier for Cowfight Queen. Can suck my balls. All right. Krill Tizrothararu. Krill is like Bandos, and I wish I could have reviewed Bandos first, but Krill is like Bandos in the sense that they have similar mechanics. They're both God Wars bosses. They both hit super freaking hard with their melee attacks. But the thing with Krill is he can hit through your prayer. He poisons you. He's a tough son of a bitch, man. And he really is. His drop table is not great, though. I mean, the Zamorakian Spear, his God Sword's kind of trash. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on there. So you won't see a lot of people fighting Krill. I'll go to Krill sometimes when I get like a Greater Demons task or something like that and take my Slayer Helm and whatnot. But other than that, I don't find myself going there, at least not anymore very often. So I'm going to put Krill in C tier, which isn't really fair because I'm not going to put Bandos in C tier, but we'll get there when we get there, and I'll explain why. Dagonoth Kings. Dagonoth Kings are one of the OG bosses. I like Dagonoth Kings. I do. I think it's a pain in the ass to get there. I hate getting to Dagonoth Kings. I hate that freaking dungeon, man. I hate it with a passion. I hate how far it is from like civilization, and it's just. But I like the fact that it drops the rings, and back in the day, the rings those were the shit. I mean, now we have the new rings from Desert Treasure 2, so they're no longer best in slot. But I mean, they'll always have a place in my heart because of those drops, and because they all, as like a team, they all kind of, they all work together, and you have to bring your friends. And I mean, you can solo these guys if you want, but it's really all just about safe spotting correctly. And I'm not a super big fan of that, so I like going there with a little team and taking them out and grinding those rings, man. So yeah, it's tough though. I don't know where to put them. I don't want to put them in B, and I don't really want to put them in C. I guess I'll just say that if there was between C and B, it's like a C plus or a B minus, right? So I'll put Dagonoth Kings in C. God, no, I won't. I'll put them in B. God, I'm such a whatever. Yeah, that's where they'll go. Thermy. Thermy's D tier. I'll tell you why. Thermy is such a lazy boss to me. 93 Slayer, right? It's like Jagex took a Smoke Devil, resized it, and said, here you go. Here's a new Slayer boss. Enjoy. Gave it the shittiest drop table it could possibly have for such a high. There's not even like a 1 in 10,000 item on there. Like, like you fight KBD, for instance, there's a 1 in 10k chance you'll get that Draconic Visage, which isn't worth which isn't worth that much. I mean, it's a couple mil, but it's still better than nothing. You have that to look forward to as a possibility. I'm not stoked on Thermy. I don't like the fact that the only mechanic when you melee it is just to walk underneath it. I mean, and because the problem with that is that you have this super simple boss that's kind of like Kraken, except you can't AFK it. You have to be focusing the entire time, and I hate that, man. Just pick one or the other. So now you're forcing me to stay on the screen to just keep clicking under, over, under, over, under, over. Watch my health constantly, and I think that's the sign of lazy game design, and especially since the drop table is such garbage. I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing here? So D tier for sure, right there next to Cowfight Queen. Fight me. Obar and Brofida, whatever. They're kind of like in the same class. They're both free-to-play bosses. So the problem with these guys is when it comes to free-to-play, they're great. They're like up here because it's all they have. And Brofida, oh my god, this green bro drops its essence. And that's a great drop. And I think it might even be one of the fastest moneymakers for free-to-play players, right? Obar, I'm not sure. It drops its club, I think, or something like that. But these guys are essentially the same boss. I mean, it's like they were almost just recolored too. So in terms of being free to play, they're like up in A tier. But since we're not free to play, I mean, they're going in C tier. They're really close to D tier, but that's not really fair because again, they're meant for free to play players. Okay, these guys, Drained Archaeologist, Crazy Archaeologist, and Chaos Fanatic, these to me are all the same. They're all wilderness bosses. Their mechanic is just that AoE attack that they do. And there's not a whole lot going on here. I like the fact that they exist. I like the fact that they drop the Odium shards and the Maledictin shards or whatever for this wilderness shields. I wish those shields were a little bit more valuable and had more use than they do, but they're kind of mid-game content, so I guess that's their use. There's not a whole lot to say with these guys. Again, their whole deal is just kind of watching out for that AoE attack, which is to say more than some of these guys, like Barrows, for instance. So C tier for all of them. They're all, to me, they're all the same. Like there's not enough differences in each one of these guys to individually rate them. I would never do that. Bandos. Love Bandos. Bandos is a great boss. General Grador. I love Bandos. Bandos, A tier. It's always going to be a good boss because it's always going to have it's going to have that great drop of the chest plate tacits. I mean, Ironmen are going to want that. Regular players want that. It's not as intense as Krill Tizeriroth because he can't poison, he can't hit through prayer, but he can hit hard with his melee, obviously, and he can hit hard with his range. You can have a tank here, which I think is a great, like any boss that lets you have a tank and have a little bit more when it comes to mechanical, whatever. That's a good mark in my book. And General Grador is like the ultimate God Wars boss. Everyone's done it. Most people enjoy doing it. In fact, it's probably the most requested boss outside of raids in my clan is to go do General Grador and try to get those plate bodies and those tacits. So great boss. I think it looks badass, and it's just an awesome fight. Plus, it's you can solo it, and you can do the 6-0 method, I think it's called, to avoid taking any damage. So you know me, anything like that incorporates skill, lets you stay there longer, is going to get a higher grade in my book. Kriara. Kriara is like one of the easiest God War bosses to me. I don't know. There's not a whole lot going on with her. It's a ranged boss, obviously. So you kind of just go in there, protect from range. I've never done the Chinchompa method. I heard that's probably the best way to go about it, though. I have gotten a few KC. I love what she drops. I don't love the armor, like Armadale armor. I think it looks terrible, but I love the fact that it's worth a lot, and it dropped the Armadale crossbow. I love that. So I should probably do more Kriara. And I like the fact that if you get an Avanzi task from a Slayer Master, you do more damage. So that's a B tier for me, for sure. Probably should do more Kriara. Giant Mole. Yeah, so Giant Mole is, Giant Mole's like the first boss that everyone does. The only mechanic is that it runs away. Somebody told me, or I heard from someone, that the drop table is like, you can make millions per hour with this guy. I looked at the drop table the other day, though, before making this video, and I don't understand what they're talking about. So if someone could explain that to me in the comments, I'd be so stoked, because I don't understand where you'd be getting these millions of GP from. But, yeah, it's like, I mean, I remember doing Giant Mole when I was younger and being kind of like not super impressed, but knowing at the same time that this is a beginner boss. So I don't know. I know some people who would put it like way up here. It's like it's the OG, man. It's like the best one that they had back in the day. Like, no, dude, it's not that good. I'm going C tier for sure. It's like average low tier boss. Kraken. Okay, here's the deal. Kraken is my most killed boss. I've done Kraken over 3,000 times. For some reason, I just keep getting Kraken tasks, and I won't leave until I get every kill from the Kraken boss. The drops are decent enough. The tentacles and all that shit. But, dude, the thing with Kraken is it's just such a mindless boss, man. I mean, when I first started doing Kraken, don't get me wrong, I liked it. I enjoyed doing Kraken. And mostly because I thought it was a good way to make money. And when I was at 87 Slayer, it was a good way for me to make money. I didn't have Serb unlocked yet. I certainly didn't have Alqaedra yet. I was a much lower combat level, so I couldn't do some of these stronger bosses. Certainly couldn't grind out some of these stronger bosses or stronger content. So it was a good mid-tier boss for me to make some cash. But it was so freaking boring. And for a time, I didn't know that fishing potions existed. Or not fishing potions, but the fishing explosives. So I didn't know you could activate all 4 tentacles at once just by throwing the explosive in there. So my whole thing was, I thought the mechanic of Kraken was how fast you can wake it up. So I'd bring knives or a blowpipe or something, and I would just shoot each tentacle as fast as I could. And the faster I shot each one, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a faster kill this time. And then I found out that the fishing explosives existed, and I wanted to kill myself because it was like, oh my God. I had just done like 500 KC, like 2 or 3 tasks without knowing that. So it was just such a waste of time. It's also the only pet that I have is through Kraken. And of course it is, because it's the only pet I didn't want. was Kraken. And I remember when I first got it, everyone in my clan was so stoked for me, and I was just like, yeah, does anyone want to trade? Because not happy about it. Kraken, though, it's not D tier. You can AFK it. It's a nice boss to AFK. It's kind of its own thing, actually. It's like, you know what? Matter of fact, what we're going to do is, here we go. We're going to give Kraken its own tier. Yep. Kraken by itself. Boom. There we go. Change the color really quick. I don't really understand these colors. I mean, why is green the worst and red the best? Whatever. Okay, Zilliana. Actually, I want to do Grotesque Guardians first. Grotesque Guardians, a lot of mechanics for such a shitty drop table. But, that being said, it's a good boss to learn more difficult mechanics. It's like Zulrah in that sense, that most people because I think you get gargoyles at 75 Slayer, so most people who have done Slayer up to that point are not used to bossing mechanics. So like Grotesque Guardians are a great way for newer players to start learning about how to move around, how to switch prayers, how to do gear switches and stuff like that. So as much as I want to put it lower for the shitty drop table that it has, I will put it higher just because it's a great learning boss. I'm almost tempted to put it in an A tier for that very reason. And I'm going to, actually. And I can't believe I'm doing that because just before this video, I was talking about how much I hate grinding out Grotesque Guardians, which I do. But I think it's a wonderful boss for newer players to learn how to do harder content. So I'm glad they exist, and they do break up the monotony of doing gargoyles. I'll say that. And Zilliana, last one, Zilliana. I haven't done Zilliana. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why I haven't. I have the agility level. I can go do it whenever I want. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I've heard though from people that she's, she hits hard with mage and stuff and melee, but she's doable. Doable. All right. But I'm not going to rate her because I can't in good conscience. So anyways, that's my list, folks. Obviously, we didn't get through all of them because I haven't done any of these. I know. What am I doing? I'm so stupid. But I know I haven't done all these guys. But I have done these ones, and I think that's a fair amount. I think that's a decent list right there. I agree with everything on there. Obviously, because I agree because I'm the one who put them there. Do you agree, though? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with anything I said? Do you disagree with everything I said? I'd love to know. Just let me know below. Thanks, guys.